Monday already. I've got some bullet points for you. Just a lot to go through. No question. The Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch talks about freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Donald Trump facing tests from North Korea. In Germany, the airport comes to a screeching halt and evacuated because of what looks like a terrorist scam, an attack involving polluting the airways. Yes. And critics incorrectly blame Betsy DeVos for a Twitter typo. We'll talk about that. Plus, Obama scheming to sabotage the Trump presidency. What does that mean? We'll get into all of it. On the program today, the professor, Allan Saxe, Eric Lokesma, Chad Livengood, and a whole host of other folks. How do we do it every day? I don't actually have any idea. But tell you what, get dressed, get some coffee, and we'll do this. It's called The Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses. All right. Come on now. This is The Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Hey, boy.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it on a Monday. Glad to have you listening. Glad to have you as part of the program we do here every day. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to start with Oroville, California. Because if you haven't heard this, you're going to. Because about 200,000 people are sitting directly in the line of peril right now. 200,000 Americans that could be devastated, their homes washed away, their lives in jeopardy. 200,000 people asked to evacuate their homes in Northern California after authorities warned that the emergency spillway in the nation's tallest dam in Oroville might just fail. Lake Oroville is about 150 miles northeast of San Francisco. It's one of the state's largest man-made lakes, and the 770-foot tall dam, the tallest in America. Well, it's failing. The dam's emergency spillway could fail at any moment. And within hours, hundreds of cars carrying panicked and angry people were sitting in gridlocked traffic. The police came to tell them to evacuate, and they got jammed at the gas station, then jammed in the highways. Officials warning residents that the spillway could fail within the hour. It hasn't happened yet. Just shocked, said some of the residents. Not giving us much warning, said another. We've never been through this before. Yeah, no kidding. We have everything with us, our dogs, our kids, our clothes in the trunk. From the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, spokesman Scott McLean said, this is very serious. I'm just trying to get through traffic. What they couldn't fit, they piled as high as they could in their downstairs Yuba City apartment, many folks, joined in lines of traffic attempting to leave the city where they had moved just 3 weeks ago. But state engineers Thursday discovered new damage to the dam spillway. Big chunks of concrete went flying off the spillway, creating a 200-foot long, 30-foot wide hole. 200 feet long, 30 foot deep, Structural failure. But meanwhile, the reservoir levels continued to climb behind the critical flood control structure because the reservoir is now above 90% of its capacity. You see, all of this rain, all of this snow, all of this end of the drought scenario has created a problem. The integrity of the dam not jeopardized, they say. The problem is with the spillway, not the dam. The spillway coming around the side. State officials are trying to use another emergency spillway at the dam. Crews have been clearing trees, rocks, other debris from the hillside near the dam where the water will flow. Lake Oroville would naturally flow over this ungated concrete crest into a mostly unlined emergency spillway if the reservoir reaches 901 feet. First time the spillway has been used in the dam's 48-year history. It came within 1 foot of flowing over in January of 1997. It's the first time it's ever been used. The point being is we've got problems when it comes to infrastructure. That dam breaks, 200,000 people get washed. And who knows what kind of damage downstream. Who knows what kind of damage could be done downstream. Speaking of the environment, let me stick with this for a minute. If you haven't seen these pictures, you'd be aghast. And what local cleanup teams and officials from the Environmental Protection Agency are calling an environmental tragedy, there is an emergency effort underway today, and have been for several days now, to clean up the mountains of garbage. The mountains of garbage left behind by protesters of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Estimates are that as many as 300 semi-length dump trucks, 300. Think about how much garbage that is. Semi-length dump trucks will be needed to clean up from those who claim to be there to protect the earth from that oil pipeline. Yeah, the Dakota Access Pipeline protesters left so much garbage behind. The problem is so immense that officials from around North Dakota and around the nation are working to beat the spring thaw to make sure the cleanup of tons of garbage is complete. The devastation is so bad that they're using bulldozers, giant caterpillar machines, front-end loaders, bobcats, anything they can use. And they're also on the lookout for, get this, for bodies. Bodies, they say, could easily be hidden in the mountains of trash. The Morton County Sheriff's Department says because the refuse is so vast, includes countless tents, sleeping bags, and other camping-type equipment, finding a body would be tragic but not surprising. The Sheriff's Department is also looking for any other potentially dangerous or illegal items, including guns, drugs, and other paraphernalia. Severe winter weather and a bridge that is out of service hampering this massive effort. It's very instructive to me to see how these social justice warriors and these environmental warriors for the earth actually treat the environment and how they really behave when left to their own devices. They're not social justice warriors. They're petulant children incapable of even cleaning up after themselves. This is what socialism looks like at the end result. I mean, go look at Venezuela. See how clean it is right now. Just filthy heathens and trash and garbage. By the way, the socialist utopia of Venezuela collapsing into the ash heap of history as we speak, the latest example of failed Marxist policies in government. The nation has plunged into the realm of failed state. Hospitals are without medicine or doctors. Grocery stores and supermarkets are empty. Bands of roving gangs scrounge for food in the near anarchy of the streets, and as a result of the failures of socialist thought, the nation is in ruins, and now thousands are fleeing. 20,000 asking for asylum in the U.S., the highest by far, up 200% from last year. Ah, yes. Welcome to it. It's Monday on the Steve Gruber Show.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
It's 18 after. Hey, if you'd like to join the conversation, why not? It's Monday. Start the week off right. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. Glad to have you here. Over the weekend, you probably know that the Prime Minister of Japan, Abe, was in town. Trump met with him at the same time the North Koreans were touching off yet another missile. And Donald Trump took a moment to speak with the Japanese Prime Minister. They both speak in this clip, so if there's a bit of a delay, it's because of the translator. Take one moment. It's clip 8. Hear what they have to say about their solidarity when it comes to facing the threat of a nuclear North Korea. Clip 8.
North Korea's most recent missile launch is absolutely intolerable. North Korea must fully comply with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. During the summit meeting that I had with President Trump, He assured me that the United States will always with Japan 100%. And to demonstrate his determination as well as commitment, he is now here with me at this joint press conference. President Trump and I myself completely share the view that we are going to promote further collaboration between the two nations, and also we are going to further reinforce our alliance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. I just want everybody to understand and fully know that the United States of America stands behind Japan, its great ally, 100%. Thank you.
And there you go. The President and Abe standing out there talking about the threat of North Korea and what is to be done about North Korea. Maybe we should send a thank you note to President Bill Clinton for putting together such a wonderful program that left us with this legacy of a now nuclear North Korea. I mean, it's just a menace, an absolute menace to the planet. Meanwhile, immigration raids have begun in some places. Now, I don't know the details of these or what the specifics are. None of us do, actually, but there are raids that are being conducted as the John Kelly, General Kelly, said he's enforcing the current law. The Homeland Security Secretary, John Kelly, putting it all together. I want to hear what Governor Chris Christie had to say about it. It's clip 11. Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey talking about the ICE raids with Jake Tapper of CNN over the weekend. Chris Christie, go.
Well, Jake, this is the problem with the whole failure of the federal government over the course of the last 12 to 16 years in not dealing with trying to reform the immigration system and bring some sense of order to this. When that's the case, then the laws that are in effect right now have to be enforced. And that's what's happening right now. Now, I know that the president's focus and his desire is to make sure that first they get violent criminals out of the United States, people who have been charged with violent acts. That's what I think what ICE is attempting to do. But as I can tell you, Jake, from having run a government for 7 years and been involved for many years as a U.S. attorney, things always don't go perfectly. And so you're going to have some people who also, by the way, have violated the law, but don't fit that one category. But that will be the overwhelming minority in all this. And what people should focus on is what the president is trying to do, which is to keep a campaign promise on making sure that violent criminals who are here illegally are taken out of the country in order to make America's streets safer.
Violent criminals, take it out of America, make America safer. That just sounds like a crazy radical idea now, doesn't it? It just seems like a crazy radical idea. To me, it sounds like the only practical idea that we could apply at this point, and I liked what Chris Christie had to say about we're cleaning up a mess that's been years in the making. Paraphrasing, of course. If you'd like to join the conversation at any time, you can paraphrase all you want as well. 888-900-9966 if you're so inclined. And then comes former President Obama. And then comes Barack Obama, the man who says he was heartened by anti-Trump protests, sending a message of approval to his troops. And do I say troops? I do. Because the man, former President Barack Obama, has an army of agitators. Maybe 30, 40, 50,000 who will fight this Republican president at every turn. And this historic presidency of a man elected president having never held elected office previously. You talk about an unusual presidency. How about an unusual post-presidency? Like never has been seen before. Obama isn't just staying behind in Washington. He's working behind the scenes to set up what is effectively going to be a shadow government, if you will, of sorts, to not only protect his threatened legacy, but to sabotage the incoming administration and its popular America First agenda to do so. He's doing it through a network of leftist nonprofit organizations like Organizing for Action, Now, normally you'd expect an organization set up to support a politician and his agenda to close up shop after the candidate leaves office, but no, not Barack Obama, and not organizing for action. Rather, it's gearing up for battle with a growing war chest and more than 250 offices across the nation. Since Donald Trump's election, this little-known but well-funded protesting arm has beefed up staff, ramped up recruitment of young liberal activists, declaring on its website, "We're not backing down." Determined to salvage Obama's legacy, it's drawing battle lines on immigration, Obamacare, race relations, and climate change. Obama is intimately involved in the OFA operations and even tweets from the group's account. In fact, he gave marching orders to OFA foot soldiers following Trump's upset victory. "It is fine for everyone to feel stressed, sad, discouraged," he tweeted, "but get over it. Move forward to protect what we've accomplished." Barack Obama continues to be the main agitator in America. Make no mistake. It's 25 after on a Monday. School is in session. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
Here come the jesters. 1, 2, 3. It's all part of my fantasy. I love the music.
All right, welcome back to it. It's the Steve Gruber Show. It is Monday. The hotline number, 888-900-9966. I believe Steve is standing by to chime in. Steve, welcome to it.
Good morning, sir. My question, because I really don't know, what are the articles of impeachment? What does that include? You know, because
high crimes, misdemeanors, treason, that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, but how do you qualify that against a disgruntled president that's a communist, a Muslim communist?
I don't know. If you believe that, I don't know how you square that up.
Because it's just a set of circumstances where clearly this guy is not going to go away, and clearly he has sour grapes. And the other part of this, which is probably more important, is he continues to beat the drum on a set of circumstances where people are trying to tear down the country.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's trying to do, tear down the country. Steve-O, thanks for checking in. That's the point. Continue to divide and conquer, and don't give up ever. My next guest, the Professor Allan Saxe, a man who tries his best to help children out, but is, well, up against it every day. Professor Allan Saxe from University of Texas, welcome back.
Good morning. I heard something very troubling yesterday evening on the, I think his name is Bill Cunningham, the Bill Cunningham show.
Out of Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It may go into a little bit what your caller was talking about. Mr. Cunningham said that the New York Post at one time had a story that President Obama was organizing thousands, hundreds of thousands, up to 2 million young people for some cause, demonstrations or whatever, and now they're launched.
That's exactly what we were talking about. His nonprofit organization is called Organizing for America.
Correct.
Normally those things would suspend after the guy leaves office, but not in this case. He has 250 offices across the country, very well paid, very well organized, and in fact, and not only are they not going away, they're beefing up staff, ramping up recruitment, getting more young liberal activists on their website, and the website declares we're not backing down.
Why doesn't, here it is again, why doesn't the old media and the Republicans and President Trump and others bring this to the wider public's attention?
I couldn't tell you, but the fact of the matter is the rabble-rouser, the community organizer, the Saul Alinsky student, he's not here to make America great. He's not here to make America whole. He's not here to bring people together. He's here to be divisive, and he's going to continue.
This is very scary, really. If a former president of the United States is involved in this, if indeed this is going on, and a lot of signs point to it, this is really a very serious moment. I've never heard of anything like this in American political history.
No, there's never been anything like this in American political history.
Right. And of course,
the president always leaves.
And of course, if they're charged with this, I don't mean in a legal sense, I know what the reply is going to be. No, we're organizing these people to be good community people. They're going to pick up garbage on the street. They're going to help old people across the street. You know, they're going to do wonderful things in the community.
And then the Republicans are going to, run over those people because Republicans want to kill children and old people and make dirty air and dirty water and poison the world.
Yeah, this is a very serious moment if this is true.
Well, it is a very serious moment, and it is true.
Well,
so what do you think you do about it?
Well, at least it ought to be brought to the public's attention.
Well, we're doing our best here. Let's talk about what else is going on, though. Prime Minister Abe here from Japan. The North Koreans touch off another missile, a legacy left behind by President Bill Clinton and his deal that would make nuclear North Korea an impossibility, he told us. Well, guess what?
That's right.
It's not an impossibility, and here they are.
Madeleine Albright was Secretary of State, and she went there, and everything was done, and now it's just a disaster, of course. It's almost like that terrible dam in California that is breaking. It's about the same thing, and I'm not laughing about it. It is a terrible, terrible catastrophe there. But also North Korea is a catastrophe as well. But Iran is also lurking in the background, and I understand that Iran and North Korea have a lot of help with each other in regard to nuclear weapons and also ballistic weapons as well.
No question. And it makes you second-guess everything that was done by that administration when it comes to security, because you have to compare the two. You cannot not compare North Korea and Iran and what's going on and the parallels between the two, because Bill Clinton said the deal he put together, that'll keep North Korea from being a nuclear threat ever. That didn't take very long. Iran, of course, Barack Obama said, well, this will keep us safe. No, it won't. In fact, I'd say it escalates the danger of being in a nuclear confrontation or some sort of a hot war with Iran.
Yeah, the whole thing is just unwinding the junk, I call it that, on the table, left by President Clinton in foreign policy especially, and also President Barack Obama and George Bush. I have to put him in there, too.
Oh, yeah, George Bush didn't do us any favors in some of those arenas either.
Absolutely not. And Donald Trump is faced with all of that to try to clean up the mess that Clinton, Bush, Obama, all the presidents of the United States before him have left on the table. What a mess.
Well, and I was talking about this with some other folks over the weekend, and you look at all these leftist protesters about the temporary travel ban from these 7 nations and so forth, and all of these organized protesters, whether they're coming from Barack Obama or George Soros, they're being paid, they're being organized, and they're being sent out there to create chaos and break down the normal boundaries, I suppose, of what we've come to expect when it comes to civil discourse. There is no civil discourse anymore.
You're
in fact,
exactly
I want to ask
right.
you about something here.
I was
talking to go ahead.
I was pleased last night on the Grammy Awards. I listened to part of them, and I was just waiting for, the usual anti-Trump, anti-Republican rhetoric that comes from people like Meryl Streep and others. But it didn't occur last night, and I was very pleased with that. In fact, I understand there was one woman who actually wore a pro-Trump dress. And
yeah, I saw that.
And that's interesting. It was a little bit different than most of the other awards, where the producer of the awards said he was encouraging many of his recipients of awards and people there to speak out politically. And I guess he wants to raise the ratings of the Grammy Awards and want some controversy. But for the most part, it did not happen last night, and I was very glad of that.
Well, first time in a long time, yes, we've
right.
got a chance to step away from politics for a few minutes. Now, I want to ask you something after the break about a conversation I had over the weekend with some friends of mine, but I want you to think about it because it'll relate back to students, kids the age of the children you teach every day. So sit right there. We got the professor on the line today, Allan Saxe, with us as we do on Mondays. Take a quick break this Monday on the Steve Gruber Show, and we'll be right back.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
All right, welcome back to it. 45 after. All right, Professor. Here's my question. Professor Allan Saxe with me here on this Monday. I was talking to a couple that I've known for quite some time. My wife and I ran into them when we were out on Friday, and we got to talking about kids and politics a little bit, and they said that the problem with their two daughters, who have both recently graduated, they're in their mid-20s, is that they're so liberal and so indoctrinated, salted they called it, salted with what the professors had put into their brains, that they won't even have a conversation about anything they don't agree with. They won't even talk about it. I won't even talk about that. I won't even have this conversation. They leave the room. They're not even capable of having a conversation with anybody who disagrees with anything that they believe to be the truth. Is that the same thing you see on your campus?
Pretty close. I'm thinking of a few students that were so exasperated because I'm in favor of free speech. And after the first day or two, they needed the class, and I kept trying to appeal to them in many ways. I was very cordial, very respectful, but talked about free speech and raised a lot of issues. And after that, one student just came to class, sat in the classroom reading a book, just sort of disdaining everything that was taking place. She didn't want to hear it. She couldn't stand it. And another student did tell me later on, without me questioning them or anything, just one student comes up and says, after the first day, this other student said, I can't take this free speech stuff anymore. I can't take it. And literally moved from where she was sitting to the back of the class and just sat there the whole rest of the semester reading a book. So pretty well correlates with what you were describing about your friend's two daughters.
Why don't you call these people out? Why do you call, hey, young lady in the back of the class, why are you so opposed to free speech? Could you tell us why?
You don't want any controversy. I think a lot of...
I do. I don't know about you. I want lots of it.
A lot of professors do not want the trouble. They don't want the controversy. Do the best you can.
But I'm asking you.
Say what you want to say and go on with it, because you don't want to go there. Because they'll bring administrators into it, they'll bring all the other stuff into it, and who knows what will happen later on, maybe a demonstration on the campus. You just don't want it. So I understand what your friends were saying. In fact, I think a lot of professors...
But I don't understand. Why don't you, as the professor, engage these people and say, hey, defend your point of view?
I do.
I mean, that's what teachers do. But if she sits there reading her book, why don't you just, force them?
I did, and at different times, the response was awful. I did. The response was awful, just awful. And so,
you mean like threatening, mean-spirited? I don't get it.
Yeah, mean-spirited, almost rebellious, and you want to go ahead with the classroom instead of just talking to one student and knowing that it's not going to go anywhere. It'll just be a very, very aggravating session, and the rest of the students will either be bored or get mad, and that's about it. Other students did address her at different times, but the dynamics of a classroom are very different these days. It's a very troublesome situation occasionally. Now, a lot of other professors just don't have the issues that I do, because they like to teach very small graduate classes, advanced classes, and don't want anything like that to come up in class. But I teach a lot of large introductory classes where we go over a lot of various issues and ideas, and I love to engage them, but it's not good. I got another story, if you have a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we got about 2 minutes. Go.
Okay. I have addressed large groups of college mid-level administrators and some teachers, mid-level, at another university for many, many years. And it's in another town nearby, and it's a nice little conference. And I've been doing that for 6 or 7 years, sort of I was funny at one time and made a big hit. And then they asked me, they said, I told them, they said you can speak about anything. I was sort of the luncheon speaker. And I said, well, I'm going to tell them what I think about higher education. I did. This is about a year ago, and no invitation this year. And I talked to the individual that organizes it, and they said, you would not believe it. The evaluations, we evaluate everything now, were brutal from these college administrators and many teachers. They said it was brutal. So I believe that many college teachers and some administrators are really not much better than the students.
Yeah, see, that's just embarrassing.
Oh, it is. It was, and they said that the comments about you, meaning me, were brutal. That's exactly what one person said, that they were brutal.
Because you had the nerve to discuss higher education and its downfalls and its problems and the challenges it faces.
And that's exactly what it was. And it was half in a joking way. They didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to hear it. They think they're really doing God's work.
They don't believe in God.
So that's another story. You're right.
Yeah. Hard to do God's work when that's not what you believe in.
That's
Professor
right.
Allan Saxe, always a pleasure.
It's really tough. It's really not... It's really pretty tough. But I'm in there swinging. I still enjoy what I do, and there are some wonderful students around. I just don't... I just try to stay out of big fights if I possibly can, both with faculty and with students alike, as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, well, good people can't sit around doing nothing. You know how that
goes, Professor. I agree with you completely, but it's very, very tough.
I don't doubt it. Professor Allan Saxe, always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
This hour brought to you by DTE Energy, providing safe, reliable natural gas to businesses across Michigan. DTE Energy. Know your own power. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, it is Monday. Hope you had a terrific weekend. For those in Northern California, at least one community, not much of a weekend. In fact, they're wondering if their town will even exist in a few hours. Oroville Dam, the spillway specifically, not the dam itself in Northern California, the tallest in America, failing. Structural damage. The first time the spillway's ever been used in going on 50 years because there's been so much rain, so much snow. The drought is over. But they don't want the drought to be all over in one day. Look, Lake Oroville sits there. Let me see, how tall is this dam? It's like over 700 feet tall. Anyhow, they're evacuating more than 200,000 people because they say it's going to fail. Not the dam itself, but the spillway. Giant chunks of concrete come out, 200 feet long, 30 feet deep, the water just roaring through it. If the reservoir reaches 901 feet, it could really be a catastrophic failure. Anyhow, we're keeping an eye on that to see what happens. I mean, good Lord, people leaving town with everything they can carry because their town might not exist when they get back. Speaking of might not exist, I'm going to talk about the future of the Democratic Party here in a moment. But We'll talk to Mike in Ann Arbor on the hotline first. Then I'll tell you about the Democratic Party joining the Whigs in history. Mike, welcome to it.
Thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Obama has come on your program this morning as a topic. Recently, yes. Judicial Watch got a couple pieces of information about Obama and his administration. And one of them was a lawsuit against the Secret Service to uncover the cost of the 8 Hawaiian vacations that the Obamas took over his term in the presidency. We taxpayers paid for Mr. Obama and his group to enjoy themselves on the beaches of Hawaii over the last 8 years to the tune of $85 million. Nice
wow, that number is out. $85 million
by Judicial Watch. And now that is just for the Hawaii vacations. That's not for Martha's Vineyards or when Mrs. Obama and the girls and 50 members went to Spain for 2 weeks and went to England. That we've also.
What about Africa? Remember the big trip to Africa that was really a vacation?
Yeah, that was about a $40 million deal. But this was for his personal vacations to Hawaii. You know, I think it's about time we asked Mr. Obama to return some money back to us, okay? But here's the other thing now. Before Mr. Obama left the White House, he left us with a wonderful little present, again costing us taxpayers $18 billion. This was uncovered by, again, Judicial Watch, which is a great organization. In November of last year, they allocated $18 billion to public housing upgrades, which means if you're living in public housing and you just don't like the free rent you're getting and free housing that you're getting in a certain location, if you so desire, you can upgrade yourself, and guess what? We will pay for it. Here's the
Public housing has been an abject failure, by the way, since the time it was implemented, and in fact, a few years ago, we had destroyed more units than had actually been built originally as far as public housing in America. But that's how good a program it turned out to be. It's a place where you congregate all of the people that have, little chance. You congregate all of the poor people. You congregate all the people that are having problems. You have drug issues. You have crime issues. And you put them all in one place and exacerbate the problem as opposed to spreading them out and giving these people a chance to survive. Go on.
Well, here's the thing. This was done in November, during the transition period, okay? So he left us with a beautiful gift. The problem with this is we are stuck with this. Mr. Obama, we are paying as taxpayers for this, and he is walking away crystal clear. Here's another thing.
No, he did walk away.
Well, here's another thing I'd like to point out. He is the head of this organization that you were talking about this morning, this new group that's out there to...
Organizing for Action.
Correct. I would say that if one death occurs because of this organization, that he be held responsible. It is time that responsibility be put on this man's shoulders. He's laughing at us. He's making fun of the United States, and we are paying for it. And as taxpayers, we should demand some accountability. And Mr. Trump, and God bless him, I hope to hell that Jeff Sessions goes after Obama because he is committed fiscal crimes against the people of this country, period. And he's walking away laughing at us.
Mike, I greatly appreciate it. Good comments. Good insight, as always. I thank you for the call. 888-900-9966, the number for you to call. 888-900-9966. Feel free to jump on the hotline yourself at any time and be like Mike. Well, I don't know if I have enough time to get through everything I wanted to get here, but I'll get to it I'll do my best here. Estimates put attendance at last month's women's marches around the world at more than 3 million, 300,000 to 400,000 in the city of Washington, D.C. After President Trump's immigration order, nearly $20 million was donated to the ACLU in a single weekend. The capacity for enormous change within the political left has never been more evident, and yet the question everyone seems to be asking is, what's next? Much has been written about the Democrats' leadership vacuum. Is it Chuck Schumer? Is it Elizabeth Warren? And that, coupled with that wide-open election for the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, little wonder why the opposition to the Trump administration has felt piecemeal at best. A new DNC leader may offer partial relief, but it won't help the underlying cause. The exit of the Clintons and Obamas has given the Democratic Party, well, an identity crisis, to be honest. The uncertainty has created opportunities for new leaders, new organizations to rise up and take the mantle, but unfortunately, most of these responses have fallen victim to the same foibles that got the Democrats into the mess in the first place. They are focused on federal elections. For example, Swing Left, a brand new group that helps you find your closest swing district so you can volunteer. But so far, it only lists elections for the United States House of Representatives. Another is Political Revolution, the grassroots group that grew out of Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, ostensibly to elect progressive candidates up and down the ballot. Their first and only endorsement so far, a special election in Los Angeles to fill a vacant congressional seat that they would have won anyway. Or there is Brand New Congress, another group of Sanders alums working exclusively to replace the existing chamber with more progressive members. All of these groups are new, and they're all focused for now on federal races. That's all there is. One local leader that was interviewed said, "I am kind of frustrated because what they did was they came in and it was all about the national races, so we lost some of the lower level elected officials again." You see, the problem with the Democrats is they have been pushed to be a coastal party as it is in federal elections, it appears, after this last race. They're not focusing enough attention on statewide and local races where they must get their footing back, or they're going to become an absolute obsolete party. But it does open up opportunities for libertarians and others to move into that space. The Democrats are in deep trouble. They're in trouble of going extinct in many places, being a regional party and not a national party. And you remember how they said that the Republicans were in such trouble going into the 2016 elections. My, how times have changed.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
All right, here's my constitutional question for the day, and I don't think we have an answer that's proper. By what authority does the federal government own and control millions of acres in this country? You know, the federal government owns the majority of Nevada and New Mexico, vast pieces of Montana and Wyoming and the Dakotas, and under what authority, I ask? Because the federal government, controls these areas. The new incoming Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke, a congressman from Montana, also the former commander of SEAL Team 6, he's kind of a, what's that term? Badass. He's coming to take over, and he understands the field in front of me. But I just want to know that answer. My next guest, H. Sterling Burnett, Ph.D., Heartland Research Fellow in Environmental Policy and Managing Editor of Environment and Climate News. Mr. Burnett, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So can you answer my constitutional question, or is that just too far gone?
Well, I think the answer, if you read the Constitution, is they have no authority to own that much land.
Pretty sure that's what I got out of it, too. I'm pretty sure the federal government can own land until the states are created. You know, the many states were created in the Western Territories, and the land should have all gone to the state of Arizona or New Mexico. New Mexico has the largest percentage of federal land of all the states. And, and look at Nevada. It's all federal land. Montana's tons of federal land. And because of that, the federal government holds sway over, gas leases, coal leases, all of the energy that we look for, lumbering and timber, all controlled by them, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yep. No, for numbers, for several Western states, they were not admitted to the Union under the same conditions as the prior states, which was a condition set up in the Constitution, that all states would be treated equally and on the equal basis. If, New York State, Massachusetts, basically every state east of the Mississippi, east of the Rocky Mountains, in fact, a very small percentage of their land is owned by the federal government. And, it's pretty clear in the Constitution what they were supposed to own land for. I mean, remember, the Constitution is a delegation of powers, a specific delegation of powers to the federal government. And if you read your Bill of Rights, it's actually limited to those powers specifically delegated to it. It doesn't have any power not.
Now, let me ask you something. And I believe Montana, if memory serves, because I went to college here, I think it became a state in 1893. I know Arizona became a state in 1912, the last of the first 48, if you will. I know that. And I believe that New Mexico came in the year before. Now, having said all that, did we change the Constitution somewhere between, say, Pennsylvania being one of the original 13, or Michigan being added as the 26th state, or Montana being added? Did we change the Constitution somewhere that we weren't taught in school? Did I miss something somewhere?
Well, yeah, we added some amendments, but none of them dealt with how much land and for what reasons the federal government can own land for postal roads and ports and things like that.
So again, I ask, under what authority does the federal government have control over any of these lands?
Under the made-up authority of Congress, the President, and the United States Supreme Court that acquiesced to the creation of national parks, which aren't mentioned in the Constitution, national forests, which aren't mentioned in the Constitution, Bureau of Land Management lands, which aren't mentioned in the Constitution. It's nowhere in there.
Now, here's what we could do. We could go back through and buy, the National Park Service. Yellowstone National Park was created by an act of Congress March the 1st, 1872. That I know because it says so on the gate leading into the park. So at least it was done by Congress, which would be constitutional in my estimation. And maybe many of the other national parks were created that way as well. But much of the national federal land being set aside as wilderness, or the vast chunks of land put off limits to exploring for oil and gas, are done by presidential fiat, by executive order, with no congressional input, correct?
Well, not quite. No, every bit of land that the federal government owns was set aside by Congress. But the president, on more than one occasion, has changed the status of those lands. But even that was done under a law established by Congress. If you're talking about things like national monuments, all it does, it takes federal land that's controlled by one agency and under one set of rules and changes
it, pushes status. It to another agency. I got it. So what do you hope for? We've only got a couple of minutes here, but we had to give people an education on how federal lands work before we could get to the meat of the conversation here. What do you hope for under Zinke or Rex Tillerson as a Secretary of State, or any of these other executives being appointed by President Trump?
Well, Zinke understands that the federal government has far too much control of these lands, that it often does bad things. It's mismanaged much of these lands. But I don't think he's got the picture strongly enough. He still thinks the federal government should own these lands, and I just think that's wrong. I think one of the reasons these lands are so badly mismanaged is they're controlled thousands of miles away. They have no or limited input from the states that they reside within.
I would agree with you. I would oppose Zinke on that because I lived and went to college in Montana, and I can tell you there is far too much control by the federal government, by people that have never been to Montana, have no understanding of how it works or what the real priorities are in western states. They have no connection to it except when they on occasion go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming to ski and feel like they've gone to the western United States. You're right. He's wrong. 30 seconds. Is there anything we can do about it?
Well, hopefully he'll come to his senses, but in the end, he's not the person in final control. That's going to be President Donald Trump. And, one of the things that I think Trump is wrong on, because he doesn't want to dispose of any of the land in the western United States. He doesn't want to give any of it back to the states or sell it back to the states or privatize it as it should have been done, as it was done in all the eastern states, and as it should have been done in the western states as well.
Greatly appreciate that, Doctor. We're going to have you back and explore this deeper because it's a much deeper rabbit hole than we've gotten into so far. H. Sterling Burnett, Ph.D., Heartland Research Fellow. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
So get on your bed, motor scooter, and ride. I'm going to my place and stay all night. Yeah. The first thing in the morning, we'll be feeling all right.
Keeping an eye on the Oroville Dam in California. What a fascinating story. The nation's tallest dam intact itself. The problem being with the spillway and the emergency spillway seem to be failing. Nearly 200,000 people ordered evacuated from below. The wall of water that could result could be 30 to 40 feet high. Too much rain and snow in Northern California. It's a long way from the drought a couple of years ago, eh? All right, shifting gears back to Michigan's own Betsy DeVos and what she could mean for schools here in the state of Michigan. Our good friend Chad Livengood from Cranes Detroit joining us again. Chad, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
A lot of conversations about West Michigan's Betsy DeVos, now the Secretary of Education, who got through on a historical vote 51-50. Okay. What do you make of it? If I go back to Elizabeth Warren's book from a couple of years ago, Elizabeth Warren touts schools of choice and voucher programs, but apparently in the world of politics that doesn't mean anything now, and she's totally opposed to Betsy DeVos. What's going to happen to Betsy DeVos going forward?
Well, I mean, there's only so much that the Secretary of Education can really do to influence law. The federal government has sort of limited powers other than the purse strings. The federal government can't come in and rewrite Michigan's state constitution and allow vouchers. And Betsy DeVos knows that. She tried to get the Constitution amended in 2000. She and her husband Dick, and they failed in that effort. But she can be influential. And if there's any place in America where public education is in most crisis, it's probably the city of Detroit. I mean, they got some of the worst performing schools. The public school district and charter schools in the country. And
there's my question, Chad. Why would anybody oppose schools of choice or a voucher program that could give kids in places like Detroit a chance to go to a better school? I mean, the money wouldn't change. If the taxpayers were still footing the bill for the voucher, what difference would it make? You'd just be taking the money from one place and putting it with the student so the student could get a better education. Why would anybody be opposed to such a concept?
Well, adults are opposed for various reasons. I mean, we've got the teachers' unions, so we'll see this as a way to put them out of business. And
so it's about the teachers' unions and their power.
Yeah, politicians. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of power here. And I mean, this goes back to the debate last year we had in the legislature when the legislature was bailing out Detroit public schools to try to stave off of bankruptcy and potentially more credit exposure and debt exposure for the state of Michigan. And the mayor and the governor and the Republican Senate all were pushing for the creation of a commission that would have some regulatory power over which schools, whether run by Detroit Public Schools or charter operators, can operate and where in Detroit, to try to bring some semblance of organization, because you have a system right now where you have these really high-performing charter schools and high-performing Detroit Public Schools, and then you have another charter operator comes in and kind of plops down and tries to essentially cannibalize. And, I mean, it's creating competition, yes, but it's also causing destabilization, and then you have pockets of the city that are underserved. There's no high school in the southwest corner of Detroit.
The school system. But let me jump in there, Chad. Destabilization. The school system is already so poor in many places. Destabilizing what exactly?
Well, you're destabilizing. It's not just the school system, Steve. It's destabilizing the city. Right now there's this effort underway by the school reform office. The state school reform office, they've put 25 schools on notice in the city that they'll be closed. 10 of them are high schools. And there may be some charter operators out there that will come in and fill the vacuum, but charter operators they shy away from high schools because they're more costly to operate. It's hard for these for-profit companies to get a profit out of, or even break even running a high school. There's only a couple.
See, if I'm a for-profit guy, though, if I can come into Detroit and make it work and have a successful high school that works and puts out well-educated students, man, that would be the best testament and testimonial you could ever get. I'm just throwing that out there.
It would seem that way, but they tend to go towards the K through 8 or K through 6 grade levels, and also the other big rub on charters in Detroit is they don't take on, or they're not equipped to take on, the most severe special education needs students. And so Detroit Public Schools has a disproportionately high rate of students who have special ed. I mean, it's 2 to 1 compared to the normal public school district. And so you have these. That's one of those cost factors that the folks that were trying to sort of overhaul the DPS last 2 years really couldn't get addressed last year when the legislature just wrote a check for the outstanding debt. Some of these structural issues in who serves students and how, and transportation is a big issue. I mean, we don't think about it. Maybe when you're outstate, you don't really think about 3-4 miles away being a big problem, but everybody typically has cars. In Detroit, if you're more than 2 miles away from a school, it becomes more and more of a barrier for families without cars to get there or get their kids there on time every morning. And that's big.
Especially if the weather's bad.
Especially if the weather's bad. But that's a big driving factor for absenteeism in urban schools.
Well, Chad, we got to leave it right there. And what we're going to do is check back and see what any of the new programs and policies will have as far as impacting Detroit Public Schools. Greatly appreciate the update, as always, Chad Livengood from Cranes Detroit. We'll check back in as we need, Chad.
Thanks, Steve.
Chad Livengood, everybody. It is a Monday, and you're listening to The Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it on a Monday. This part of the program brought to you by MAB. Did you know that 1 in 4 homes have dangerous levels of radon gas? Make sure you get your home tested today. For more information, contact radon@michigan.gov or 800-RADON-GAS. That's RADON gas. Well, there you have it. Keeping an eye on this crumbling infrastructure in Northern California. I find it interesting because the spillway could go. The emergency spillway is crumbling. Last time they checked, the hole in the spillway, 200 feet long, 30 feet deep. The problem is if the spillway cuts too deep, the dam itself is not in trouble, but it doesn't really matter if the dam's being compromised by a path cut to the side, and it'll create great problems if it continues that way. So keep an eye on that. It's in Oroville, California, by the way. The state engineer is trying to figure out what they can do about it, but they have ordered the evacuation of 200,000 people. 200,000 people have been told they need to get on the way and get out of the way. And so that's where we are with that. I'll keep an eye on it, but it is a story that's on all the major news networks now. I mean, 200,000 people, maybe more, and the catastrophic damage downrange could be cataclysmic. Neil Gorsuch has been a defender of free speech and a skeptic of libel claims. So says the Associated Press in a comprehensive review of many of his rulings. His record puts him at odds with Donald Trump and the president's disdain for journalists and a tendency to lash out at critics. On other First Amendment cases involving freedom of religion, however, Gorsuch's rulings in his decade on the 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Denver reflect views more in line with the president and conservatives. Gorsuch repeatedly has sided with religious groups when they butt up against the secular state. In a 2000 opinion, for example, involving free speech, Gorsuch ruled for a Kansas citizen who said he had been bullied by Douglas County officials into dropping his tax complaints. When public officials feel free, this is part of the decision. When public officials feel free to wield the power of their office as weapons against those who question their decisions, they do damage, not merely to the citizen in their sights, but also to the First Amendment liberties, he wrote. All right, let's check in. Jennifer's checking in from wherever, Jennifer. I've never actually asked. Jennifer, I don't know where you call from, but welcome back to the program.
Thank you. You don't know how I appreciate you allowing me to vent. Is that dam around Yuba City and Marysville?
I'm going to have to look at it. It's in Northern California, Oroville. It's the largest dam in America, the tallest anyway, not the largest, but the tallest.
Okay.
It's like over 700 feet tall.
I was wondering because if it was around Yuba City and Marysville, they used to have a Camp Beale not too far away from there where the soldiers used to train. I have two things that totally drive me out of my mind, I guess among other things. One, when I worked for the schools, at the end of the school year, they used to send out a memo and say anything that the teachers had an account, because they had an account every year from the administration to spend so much money for the students in their class. And
right.
Every year, at the end of the year, we would get a memo which would stipulate that if you have any money left in the account, for heaven's sakes, dump it because we want more next year. The other thing that irritates me...
No, hold on. This happened. Hold on. This happened when you were... When did this happen? What were you doing?
I worked in the school library.
Okay, that's why I wanted to see what your position was. Okay, and so at the end of the year, the library, the teachers, whoever, get rid of the money because we'll want more for next year.
It was across the board.
How nice.
Any money that was left in the accounts was to be dumped because the school administrators wanted more money. Oh, and the first thing that would happen, I mean, they would threaten that the children are going to suffer and this, that, and the other thing. The second thing that would happen was all administrators would get a hefty raise in pay.
Well, of course. You got to have your priorities straight.
Yes, sir. We sure do. We got to look after ourselves first.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that bothers me about the schools is if a student has a commentary to make that is different from what the teacher believes, he is dumped on and downgraded. So therefore, the opinion of the teacher ranks over the truth and what the student believes. Either the student knuckles under and believes what the teacher says and has no right to challenge it, shall we say, and have a healthy conversation. That's just my opinion.
Think, and I'd have been tossed out of school several times for that. By the way, yes, Yuba City is, I'm answering your question, Yuba City is south maybe 10 or 15 miles from that dam.
So it would be affected by it.
Well, yeah, because the river would run right through Oroville, which is a couple of 100,000 people. But then that river would bust all the way down. It's the Feather River is what it looks like on the map, and I'm just going by the map here. The Feather River would bust downstream towards Yuba City, California, and all points south, which would take it into Sacramento, because it could actually affect Sacramento depending on the amount of the surge of the water.
Sacramento.
That's correct.
Well,
it would only be about,
if you would allow me one more thing, please.
Go ahead.
I think the Darth Vader and the Viper Award needs to go to Barack Obama. And I, as a taxpayer, it's my understanding that all these ex-presidents receive a paycheck. Am I wrong?
I believe that's correct, and I believe they also get Secret Service protection for life.
Why should we pay all these has-beens for destroying the country and placing an extended burden on the taxpayers' money after they're out of office? By that time, they have achieved their goal. They've got enough graft in their bank account that they can pay their own way. Donald Trump is not taking any money for his service as president, God bless him. He's also paying his private security. Let the rest of them take a page out of that. And the first one, Obama needs to not receive any pay to pay back for all the vacations he had that had nothing to do with national security or our country. Thank you. I'll let you go after that.
All right, well,
Thank you
here it
so
is. I'm
much.
going to give it to you, Jennifer. Thanks for listening. Listen on the radio. The pension of former presidents. The Secretary of Treasury pays a taxable pension to the president. Former presidents receive a pension equal to the pay that the head of the executive department, executive level 1, would be paid. As of 2015, that was $203,700. Washington transition funding for expenses of leaving office is available for 7 months. Private office staff and related funding is provided by the Administrator of the General Services Administration, $150,000 for the first 30 months, $96,000 per month thereafter. It's exorbitant. Back in a moment.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
So bad. I asked my family doctor just what I had. I said, doctor.
It's 18 after on this Monday. Glad you're with us. It's the Steve Gruber Show from Marquette to Monroe and all points in between on the Michigan Talk Network. I'll get to those new stations here. Could be this week. Got to make a couple of phone calls after the program today to make sure that we've got the new affiliates lined up and we can hit the full power switch. We'll let you know what that's all about. My next guest, Roger Ream, is the president of the Fund for American Studies, an educational nonprofit educating students and young professionals in America and around the world on the values essential to the preservation and success of a free society, and talk about being up against it. Roger has all the fascists that are breeding themselves on college and university campuses around the world to contend with and around the United States. Roger, welcome to the program.
Good morning. It's great to be with you this morning, Steve.
Glad to have you here. I mean, you look at the epicenter of Marxist thought and fascist behavior, and you need look no further than university campuses and college campuses and people that are protesting because they don't even want to hear the other side. They don't care what the other side has to say because it's not what they believe, and damn it, they're not going to listen.
Yeah, it's extremely disturbing, particularly for someone like me who is grew up in the 70s, caught the end of the 60s where we had the free speech movement on campus, and we had a great diversity of viewpoints. At times, yes, we had violence, which was unfortunate, but there was no effort to shut down a person from expressing a certain viewpoint that might be unpopular. We didn't have safe spaces where we could go to be protected from speech we didn't like.
No, you had vigorous debate. You had vigorous debate in the exchange of ideas. But what's funny about what you mentioned there, Roger, is those same folks that led the free speech revolution are the same people now teaching kids they don't need to hear anything but what they want to hear. And if you don't like that, we won't discuss Play-Doh, but we'll play with Play-Doh.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's what I find so disturbing because we bring close to 1,000 students from campuses around the country to our programs here in Washington every year, and we find increasingly in recent years they have never been exposed to the views we teach, to the ideas we teach, which are pretty standard ideas about how free markets create prosperity, about the importance of the First Amendment, of the Constitution, and limiting government. Civic literacy is at an all-time low among young people coming to our programs. And it's really sad to think that these kids are being indoctrinated in the classroom rather than being taught to think. Critical thinking skills are vital to the future of our country.
The critical thinking skills are almost illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
And, there were some incidences in Michigan recently where students passing out copies of the Constitution, pocket editions of the Constitution, were told they couldn't do it. At Kellogg Community College, at the Grand Valley State University, administrators of those schools told students
they couldn't hand out a copy of the American Constitution. Why?
They told they were disturbing the environment on campus for students trying to get to class, even though they were just standing at a table, passing out these copies of the Constitution and asking students if they thought we were free and trying to get them to sign up for a student organization. Those students at Kellogg Community College are suing the university for their treatment, and but it's efforts by administrators who, this administrator at Kellogg cited the Second Amendment instead of the First Amendment when he said that they didn't have a Second Amendment right to pass out constitutions that express their views. Tells you how abysmal education has been in our country.
Well, and why is this? How do we get to a point of Marxist thought control? And that's really what it is. It's a page from the playbook of the Marxist that, we don't listen to the other side. We shout down the other side, and if that doesn't work, we'll organize people to attack them physically, which has been going on with the checkbook of George Soros. And now you look at Barack Obama's organizing for action. That organization, normally when a president leaves office, he closes up shop, he moves on, he goes golfing. Not this guy. He's opened 250 offices across the country, as many as 50,000 basically at-will protesters. At his call, they can be there with signs ready to protest on a moment's notice.
Yes, I think intimidation, which is the tactic of the left, is a tactic that is used by those who are desperately trying to hold on to power. They've seen the American people vote overwhelmingly for change. In
4 elections in a row.
Exactly, in a number of elections here. And on the brighter side of things, there's an effort not only in some legislatures around the country. There's legislation, I know in Virginia, North Carolina, Arizona's passed a bill that would ensure that we have free speech on public university campuses and in community colleges. There's model legislation pushed by the Goldwater.
And why would you have to do such a thing? Roger Ream, with us, president of the Fund for American Studies. I mean, it is enshrined as the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, is it not?
Well, and this would give student groups recourse to enforce their First Amendment rights. It's sad that we have to pass legislation to protect those rights, but that's what it's come down to.
But if that's what it takes.
Yeah, exactly.
So in what states? Virginia, where else?
Well, it's passed in Arizona. There's legislation in Colorado, Virginia, North Carolina, North Dakota that's been introduced and is working its way through various committees. I don't know of anything going on in Michigan right now, or my home state of Wisconsin, but it's good legislation that says, that free speech is protected on the college campus, and you can't disinvite.
And you don't have
speakers.
to kowtow to the thug. When Milo Yiannopoulos is attacked in Berkeley, and the social justice warriors break buildings and set things on fire, it says a lot to the rest of it. Because you're right, there's some intimidation going on out there. But I'm going to tell you this. A lot of the folks that voted for Trump never said they were going to, have told not a soul since that they did. They're very glad they did, and they would do it again. And there are more that would join them based on what they're seeing on TV, I believe. I'll give you 20 seconds for the last word.
Well, I think it's important as alumni of these colleges and universities to make sure they know what's going on the campus before they send their support to these universities. Make sure that the campus that they want to support doesn't have free speech zones and limit the speech of students and disinvite speakers, and then that can make a difference because college presidents respond most effectively to money.
Roger Ream, president of the Fund for American Studies. Great conversation. Talk soon.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
When the forest burns along the road, like God's eyes in my headlights. When the dogs are looking for their bones.
All right, welcome back to it.
And it's raining ice picks on
the battle with the press continuing to be waged by Donald Trump. A successful battle, by the way, I would suggest. I mean, it has done Donald Trump very well. And, I've been on the BBC recently and so on and so forth, and they're always asking me, well, why does he continue to attack the press in this way? Because it works. Because it resonates with voters, obviously. The only institution in America that has a lower positive image than Congress is the national press. My next guest, Ed Brodow, author of the brand new book, In Lies We Trust, How Politicians and the Media Are Deceiving the American Public. Ed, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I mean, why would Donald Trump stop, punching, or maybe I should put it this way. Why would he stop rolling up the newspaper and swatting the media on the nose when he continues to be so successful by doing so?
No reason that I can think of. I think it's terrific.
I mean, it's working.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, there's a tremendous irony. I think that the press was indirectly responsible for getting him elected.
Well, I think you're exactly right, because there's a sense of fairness and fair play that Americans have in general. And when they see that somebody's being, bullied, pigeonholed, not treated fairly, the fact of the matter is they could have used Donald Trump's own words and comments and let them play for themselves without the commentary. And they would have been, potentially damaging enough on their own. But when the media goes piling on and adding their own narrative, and then you find out that some of the narrative isn't even accurate, that's where you run into trouble, and the media has been caught several times.
Yeah, most of it is inaccurate. I was looking carefully over the weekend at the stories coming out about Trump, and it's negative, negative, negative. Everything is negative. It's really it's quite amazing. I think the public is onto it now. The public is aware of it, and the more they do it, the more it just pushes people into Trump's camp.
No question, and I think that the media is helping. They're truly helping Donald Trump, because if you turn on CNN, who actually believes CNN tells the truth about much of anything anymore, or ABC, or NBC? I mean, the coverage is so biased on one side. Even people that are liberals that I know are a bit ashamed and a bit embarrassed about what they see. True or false?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's even worse now than when I wrote the book a few months ago. When I wrote the book, I was appalled at all of the lies coming from the media. It's gotten worse.
And so why does the media not get it? You look at the ratings. I just had the ratings here on Friday for cable news. I didn't have it for the big networks. The top 8 programs are all on Fox News, and then there's a couple from MSNBC. There's one show on the top 15 from CNN. They haven't any chance whatsoever, none whatsoever in the ratings. When Donald Trump says CNN is a failing network, he's right.
Yeah, well, I mean, to answer your question, when is it going to stop, or when are they going to figure it out? That's anybody's guess at this point. But they seem to, instead of using the election as an opportunity to say, okay, maybe we were wrong about him, let's give him a chance. Instead of doing that, they just piled on all of the insults on him. He's a racist, he's a sexist, he's a sexual predator, he's a this, he's a that. He's mentally unbalanced. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, and yet there are real stories out there that deserve a true vetting, like the fact that Barack Obama and his Organizing for Action operation, instead of shutting down like would normally happen after a president leaves office, it has expanded to 250 offices across the country. They're beefing up staff, ramping up recruitment of young protesters and radicals so they can continue to divide and stir up and create controversy and riots and protests. This is what Barack Obama is doing, unprecedented in American history, and yet the media stands mute.
Well, that's the big story, isn't it? That's the big story. Where is all of this coming from? What is the driving force behind all of this? And what was the driving force behind Obama?
George Soros, I would guess.
Well, there's a good guess. There's a good guess. But I have been saying for a long time now that we are eventually going to find out. It's going to come out in the open what Obama was really all about and who was behind him. But it hasn't happened yet.
Here's the problem, though. If it came right out in the open and slapped some of these college kids right on the forehead, they would ignore it and say, that's fake news. It's not real. It's fake news. I'm not going to listen to it. And I'm going to my safe space right now.
Well, there's a whole other problem. I mean,
the fact of the matter is they wouldn't believe it, is my point. These kids wouldn't believe if the truth hit them square between the eyes and said, here's what Barack Obama was up to. Here's who was funding the entire operation. Here it is out in the daylight for all to see. And these people that have been conditioned to believe otherwise would continue to stare at their smartphones, drooling, looking at Facebook and whatever else it is that they do with their time, refusing to believe the truth that hits them right between the eyes.
Well, I think the important thing to remember is that the majority is still in the Trump camp. And all these people are in the minority. And we just hear so much of them. They're so vocal that at times you get the opinion that they have the majority, but they don't. They lost the election.
Well, how do you turn the tide on it? That's my question. Before we run out of time here, Ed,
Okay.
Your book, puts some light on it. But how do you turn that around?
You turn it. It's being turned around, right? It all starts from the top. So when Obama was in office, he was whatever he was putting out was filtering down. Now you have Trump, who is putting out a totally different agenda. It's going to filter all the way down, and gradually it will change all of that. And all of the leftist ideas that were being encouraged by Obama, now they're discouraged. Now they're out. So they will one by one. I think we'll see them kind of creep into the corners and into the shadows.
I guess we'll have to find out, because I don't know if they're going to creep into the shadows quietly. Obviously, with 250 offices across the country, the former president is remaining very involved, remaining very divisive, becoming a guy who can, call a riot. It's rent a riot. Just call 1-800-RENT-A-RIOT and get them there in 5 minutes so they can protest, and they pull out whatever signs out of their back of their vehicle. One size fits all. We hate everything that's not liberal, and they go to work on us. Give me an idea, Ed. Where can people find your book?
They can find my book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or at my website, which is brodow.com, and that's BRODOW. And it's In Lies We Trust.
We Trust. How politicians and the media are deceiving the American public. Ed, greatly appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
All right, you're listening to the Steve Gruber Show on a Monday. Glad to have you along. This hour brought to you by DTE Energy, providing safe, reliable natural gas to businesses across Michigan. DTE Energy. Know your own power. When we come back, we're going to talk about those lovely Earth Justice warriors that were in North Dakota for the Dakota Access Pipeline, and what a nice mess they left behind. Plus, open lines at 888-900-9966. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Take the last train to Clarksville and I'll meet you at the station. You can be here by 4:30 'cause I've made your reservation. Don't be slow.
45 after. I'll leave the lines open for the next few minutes here as we close up the show. JB checking in on the hotline from Ann Arbor. JB, what's on your mind?
Yeah, hey, hi, Steve. A comment regarding the conversation this morning has to do with the last couple of days. I was at one of the PP protests over the weekend, and your last guest in your conversation was, how do we, convince these people that are so indoctrinated and from the Operation Freedom issues that they're being pushed by. At that protest, those people outnumbered us at that Planned Parenthood probably 5-1, 5 times what we had and showed up. What I'm saying is, people that have the mindset that America needs to be great again, we need to show it. The past type of activities that have been taking place in Washington, and of course the press covers that. The press would cover it if we had the numbers or greater than what these people are trying to present to the public.
I've heard some other people suggest that, JB. Basically, it's time for those of the alternative point of view to take to the streets.
Yes, and
in great numbers.
Yes, and we were very upfront, just holding signs, and the other people from the progressive side were angry. I mean, I saw somebody that had a sign that said, "White men, shut up." That's what they're promoting. That's what they want us to hear. We need to have a greater voice and presence.
I don't disagree. It might be his time, JB. All right, greatly appreciate you checking in. Let's go down the line. Barb is in Rives Junction, touching base today. Barb, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Steve. Over the weekend, Bernie was live, CNN, over the weekend. And they asked him if he agreed with some statement someone made. And Bernie said, well, maybe he was watching CNN, fake news. All of a sudden, there's silence. He goes, oh, are we on? That was a joke. And then right after that, we lost Senator Bernie.
Come on. I got to look that up now. Really?
It's on. You could probably, over the weekend sometime. I heard it yesterday. Alex Jones. I would not make it up.
I just found it. It's there. I'm going to have to get it on the air. Alex is going to have to hustle. I didn't see that. And CNN says that they didn't cut him off for calling CNN fake news, but that's exactly what happened. They cut him off for fake news. But, good catch, Barb. We do our best here. We can't catch it all. During an interview Friday night with CNN, former Democratic presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders joked about CNN fake news. They say he joked, of course, at which point the feed was cut. He was talking to Aaron Burnett, one of probably the weakest anchor I've ever listened to. But Barb, thanks for the heads up. Good stuff. Thank you very much. 888-900-9966, the hotline number. Warren checking in from Mason. Warren, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to mention what the other guy mentioned about us conservatives getting out and protesting and marching more. Well, the only problem with that is, and why you don't see more people, more conservatives doing that, is that we work. We got a life. We got things to do. We're not free to go out and protest like the liberals are, because we've got the jobs and we've got work, and we don't have time to do that.
Well, that's exactly right. A lot of folks, you have other obligations, shall we say, other obligations that are extremely important. Warren, I greatly appreciate you checking in, but it might be time to take a day off from work, use a vacation day or two, and go protest, because apparently that's how you get these things done. And if the little fascists show up and try to, shout you down, well, then maybe we should, have that conversation with them. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Monday. Speaking of the social justice warriors, the Dakota pipeline protesters that got so much press coverage over the last few months left so much garbage behind that authorities are concerned there could be dead bodies hidden in the abandoned tents and sleeping bags. For real. The people who claimed they were protesting the Dakota pipeline to save the environment left behind so much garbage they believe it'll take 300 semi-sized dump trucks to clean up the garbage. It's a massive cleanup underway after the Dakota Access protesters left that mess behind. Cleanup crews racing to clear areas of debris at the largest Dakota Access protest camp before the spring thaw turns the snowy, ice and snow-covered trash into an environmental catastrophe. The United States Army Corps of Engineers announced Friday that the camp located on federal land is permanently closed in order to prevent injuries and significant environmental damage in the likely event of flooding in this area at the mouth of the Cannonball River in North Dakota. Without proper remediation, debris, trash, and untreated waste will wash into the Cannonball River and Lake Oahe. Ironically, Lake Oahe, the one that the social justice warriors were there to protect from a pipeline that didn't actually go anywhere near Lake Oahe. But all the garbage they left behind, all the filth, all the trash would be an environmental catastrophe for the lake they claimed they were trying to protect. The truth. Odd little thing, isn't it? The truth. I've got a couple other odd little stories for you, including a Canadian man missing for years, found wandering through the jungle of South America. I can't make that up. It's 52 after. We'll be right back on the Steve Gruber Show. 55 after. All right, so Chad, this story is, I saw this, I'm like, come on, this can't be real. A Canadian man missing for 5 years, actually more than 5 years now, found barefoot and wandering around in the Amazon. Anton Pilipa disappeared from his home in Vancouver back in 2012 and apparently walked across 2 continents and reached the rainforest almost 7,000 miles away. He was spotted by a policeman walking down a dirt track in November, but he had no identification, seemed disoriented. Through embassies and other international agencies, his family was tracked down. Anton's brother, Stephen, said he was stunned and amazed he had made it so far. I told myself he was dead because that was the only thing I could come up with that would explain his absence. But in my heart of hearts, I didn't think he could be, and I was still really shocked either way. Now, it is believed that Anton suffers from schizophrenia. Now he's back on his medication, but think about this. He managed to travel through 10 countries, including Canada and the U.S., without a passport, without much of anything, no identification, with the intention of reaching the National Library in Argentina. You know, I want to go to the library. I think I'll just walk over there. It happens to be 7,000 miles away, but don't worry about that. Anyhow, he did make it to the library in Buenos Aires, but was turned away because he didn't have identification. So he decided, well, then I'll just walk over to Brazil, where he was eventually found. He survived by scrounging through bins and picking fruits and berries, apparently. I've never felt alone. It's been a lot of thinking for years, sleeping in the open. It's a very simple thing to do, just to live. We do not need many things, Anton said to the New Zealand Herald. A GoFundMe page has been set up by Stephen and has raised more than $13,000 to get Anton back home to Canada. That, my friends, is a long way. That's like a Forrest Gump kind of walk. Guy kind of looks like Forrest Gump. Big beard, the whole shooting match. I mean, you walk 7,000 miles in your bare feet. Your feet will be tough, I'll tell you that. No question. Appreciate you stopping in today. It's been a good conversation. We'll do it again tomorrow. Keep the faith, my friends. I'm Steve Gruber, and this is The Steve Gruber Show.